Welcome back. Today we're going to look at section 5.2, which is on polynomial division and the division algorithm. So you can see at the top we're going to look at dividing polynomials using long division, using synthetic division, and then applying the remainder and factor theorems. All of this is very useful information when you're looking at finding solutions or roots to these polynomial functions. So if you look at number 1, it says that polynomial division can be used to factor a polynomial, to solve a polynomial, and to find the zeros. If the divisor has 2 or more terms, then you have to use long division. Okay, and then these are all the different ways that you can see polynomials. So we know we can look at the standard form, and that's where they write the polynomial with each individual term. We have factored form, which gives you the factors of the polynomial, so those are easier to solve that way. And then they give you the transformation form sometimes, where you can obviously tell the shift, right? The transformation went right 1, down 3, that reflects it over the x-axis and stretches it by 2, right? So that's a transformative form for that function. Okay, so lots of ways you'll be seeing these polynomials. So we need to know how to work with them given, what form we're using or what it asks us to do. So if you look at this division algorithm, it's no different than when you divided numbers, when you learned first division, in grade school. So these are just the way that we write it with the algebraic or the polynomial terms. Okay, so f of x, if that's your function, and you're dividing by d of x, that would be what you're dividing by, right? So that would be the divisor. And f of x, what you're dividing into, that would be called the dividend. So if you look at this example down here at the bottom, 85 divided by 7, 85 was called the dividend. This is called the divisor. Same things for polynomials, okay? Well, when you divided your dividend by the divisor back in grade school, the answer you got was called the quotient. So we call that q of x, which is still the quotient, and sometimes you got a remainder. Well, we call that r of x with algebra. Okay, so everything is pretty much the same. I know this looks different, but that is what you did. Okay, so you can take the function. Typically, this is the way we will write things. But when you're working in Hawks, just make sure if it asks for this form or for this form. Okay. Sometimes they will ask for this form, so we'll talk about how to write it both ways when we do the problem, okay? But you just plug in what you have in these forms, and that would be fine. All right, so it says, to begin the division, always write the terms of the dividend and the divisor in descending orders, and then you need to put placeholders where there's missing powers of x, okay? So just as though you were dividing this, we're going to do the same steps. So let me just remind you of these steps that we did real quick. You always looked at how many times the divisor went into each term of this, right? So that's what we're doing. So how many times did 7 go into 8? We wrote that number down here, and then we multiplied whatever was up here by this number. We put that here. And then the big thing about polynomials is the next step. The next step that you did with this division problem was subtract, right? We all know that. But your teacher just told you to do this and subtract it. Well, you change that positive 7 to a negative 7. So we got to do the same thing with polynomials. But sometimes you're not only changing just one term, there might be more than one term here, so you would change all of those. So remember that subtraction step, you changed a positive number to a negative number, basically. Okay, so that's kind of the difference with the algebra part, is you may do this more than one time. But then you subtracted, and then you brought down the next number, and then you started the process all over again. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so to finish this up, we went 7 went into 15 2 times. That was 14 because we multiplied now the 2 times this number. And again, you subtracted, and you got your remainder of 1. Okay, so we would say that 85 divided by 7, if we were going to write it this way, would equal the quotient, which is 12, plus the remainder divided by, okay, I think that's supposed to be, that's not a G, the remainder divided by what you were dividing by, so 7. okay? So that should be d of x, okay? All right, a little typo there, so d of x. All right, if you wrote it this way, we would write f of x, 87, equals the divisor 12 times, and again, that should be, why do they keep putting that? That should be q. Oh, goodness. I am sorry about that. Okay, q of x, so yeah, so I'm just making sure I've got all these numbers right and giving you the right information. All right, so we've got the divisor, what we are dividing by, which would be 12, times the quotient, which is our answer, and then plus the remainder, which would be that, okay? So I just want to make sure I gave you that right information. So that's how it should be. So change those up on your notes so that we're sure we have that correct. Okay. All right. So those are the kind of the two ways. So you see that with the numbers. Okay. All right. So let's move on now that we've got that fixed up. All right. So let's do a problem with long division using polynomials. Okay. All right, so we have our function, and we're going to divide it by x minus 2. So you can also write it this way, same thing, right? So we're going to take our divisor, what we're dividing by, that goes here, just like the 7 was here, and then this would be what we're dividing into, okay? So most of us don't call that the dividend, but that is what that is. All right, so we start, here's the difference. Since we have two things here, when you do your division, you're only going to divide the first term by this first term. So you're going to ask yourself, what is 2, and I'll write this over here just so you can, this is what we're thinking, 2x cubed divided by x. That's what you're going to do. Don't worry about the 2 right now. So just divide the first term by this first term. So if you divide that, you end up with 2x squared. So that's what's going to go up here. Then just like always, you're going to multiply what's up here times this. So we have two things to multiply by. So we're going to do 2x squared times x, which is 2x cubed. And we're going to do 2x squared times negative 2, which is negative 4x squared. And then just like the other page, we're going to subtract. But when you subtract, you're subtracting both of these, so both signs will change. Okay, so you're going to do 2x cubed minus 2x cubed, which is 0. So that's going to go away. And now you have 11x squared minus a negative 4x squared. So that's going to make that a plus 4x squared. So that actually gives you 15x squared. Okay, and it's probably the worst part of this is messing up on your sign. So just be very careful with it. All right, so then once we got the number down here, we bring down the next term, just like we did on the front. So you bring down the next term, and you start all over again. So now you've got this first term divided by that first term. So now we're looking at 15x squared divided by x. Okay? Always do the first thing divided by the first thing. Well, if you divide that out, you get 15x, so that goes up here. And then you're going to just take the 15x times these two things. So 15x times x is 15x squared. 15x times negative 2 is negative 30x. And then you will subtract those. Okay, so 15x squared minus 15x squared cancels out, that's 0. And then negative 7x minus negative 30 is actually negative 7x plus 30, which gives you a positive 23x. And that's the end of that round, and then we're going to bring down the next term. All right, so we got to keep going until this won't divide into this number anymore. So we can still divide 23x divided by x. Okay, first term divided by the first term, that gives you 23. And we're going to multiply 23 times x, 23x. 23 times negative 2 is negative 46. And we're going to subtract those. So 23 minus 23x is gone. Negative 6 minus negative 46, that's negative 6 plus 46, which will give you a positive 40, right? So now I can't divide 40 into x anymore, so that must be the remainder. Okay. So I would write this as, well, again, depends on how we're doing it, but we're going to write that 2x squared plus 15x plus 23 equals, okay, what we divided by times what we got plus the remainder. Now that's one way to do it, okay? The other way to do it is you take your answer, just 2x squared plus 15x plus 23, and then you add the remainder over what you divided by, which is that. Okay, so that was the one way, and then this is the other way. I didn't write the beginning part here where you have this divided by that equals. Okay, so this is just the answer. So this is the quotient, and then you add the remainder divided by what you were dividing by, the divisor. Okay, so just again, pay attention to Hawks. They will let you know what they want, if they want the quotient, the dividend, or the remainder. So just make sure you read before you put the answer in. Okay? All right, so two more that we're going to do by long division. So this one is not in standard form, and remember we have to have placeholders. So I always like to write this out before I do the problem. Okay, so the 8, I'm just going to move these the way they belong first. There's standard form. Right? All right, but now when I put this in my division problem, I'm still dividing by 2x minus 6. Okay. But I have to have a placeholder for anything that's missing just in case, because when you put your numbers underneath, they have to have the same exponents. Okay, they have to. So if I have an x term that comes up in this problem, I don't have anywhere to put it, so I just need to have a placeholder. You may or may not need them. So I'm going to do 8x to the 4th. Since I don't have x cubed, I'm going to have a placeholder for it, 0x cubed. Then I can put the negative 60x squared. I don't have an x, so I'm going to add a placeholder, and then the minus 108. Okay, so that's just a very good thing to do because sometimes you'll need it, sometimes you won't. All right, so let's see if we need it on this one. So we're going to start by dividing 8x to the 4th by 2x. I'm going to do that over here. Some of you need to do this, some of you can do this in your head, and that's fine. But you're always dividing the first term by the first term. So that would give you 4x cubed. That's what goes up here. And then you're going to multiply this times these two numbers. So 4x cubed times 2x is 8x to the 4th. And then 4x cubed times negative 6 is negative 24x cubed. So I have to put it under the right place. So it would go under the x cubed. All right, so now I'm going to subtract. So the 8x to the 4th will cancel out. And now you have 0 minus a negative, so that's plus 24x cubed. Bring down the next term. Okay, start all over again. We're going to divide 24x cubed by 2x. 4x cubed divided by 2x. First term divided by first term. So this gives you 12x squared. So that goes up here. And then we're going to multiply 12x squared times these two. So 12x squared times 2x is 24x cubed. And 12x squared times negative 6 is a negative 72x squared. And then we're going to subtract. So these will cancel out, 24 minus 24. And then you got a negative 60 plus 72, that gives you 12. Bring down the next term. All right, start over again. First term divided by first term. So 12x squared divided by 2x gives you 6x. So that goes up here. Multiply 6x times these two. So 6x times 2x is 12x squared. 6x times negative 6, negative 36x. And then we're going to subtract both of those. So 12x minus 12x squared is 0. 0 minus a negative 36 is positive 36. Bring down that last term. And we're going to keep going until we can't divide anymore, so we can still go. So 36x divided by 2x gives you 18. multiply 18 times 2x, 36x. Multiply 18 times negative 6, that is negative 108. Subtract. So 36 minus 36 cancels, and negative 108 plus 108, so we have a remainder of 0. Okay, so here is your quotient, and it went in evenly. Okay, so that would be your answer. All right, let's look at number 3. All right, look at your polynomial. You're missing x squared, so we need to have a placeholder of x squared. And then this time, look at your dividing by is a little bit different. So we're going to divide by x squared minus 3. And then when I put my numbers in, x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th plus x cubed minus, plus 0x squared minus 8x plus 18. So I had to have a placeholder for the x squares. Okay? You got to put them in the right order as well. So don't mix those up. All right, so now we're going to start. We're going to divide first term by first term. So x to the 5th divided by x squared. If you need to write it down, write it down. But that's just going to give you x to the 3rd. We're going to multiply x cubed times x squared, which is x to the 5th. And x cubed times negative 3, that's negative, now be careful. So this would give you negative 3x cubed. So I got to put it over here. Okay, be careful. Got to put them, still subtracting. So these are going to cancel out. So this is still going to come down, the negative 2x to the 4th. And now you have x cubed minus negative 3. So that's 1x cubed plus 3. So now we've got 4x cubed. Okay? All right. And then we bring down the next term, 0x squared. And we start all over again. So now we're going to divide negative 2x to the 4th divided by that. So that's going to give you negative 2x squared. Okay, make sure if you need to do it off to the side, then you're doing this number like we did here, negative 2x to the 4th, and divide it by that. And that'll give you negative 2x squared. So now we're going to multiply negative 2x squared times x squared. That's negative 2x to the 4th. Excuse me. And negative 2x squared times negative 3 is a positive 6x squared. So it's going to go over here. Okay? All right, so now you got to subtract. Change your signs. So this is going to cancel out a negative times or plus positive. Going to bring down the 4x cubed. And I've got 0 minus 6, so that's a negative 6x squared. Bring down the next term. All right, we're going to divide again. 4x cubed by x squared, that just gives you 4x. Multiply 4x times each of these, so 4x times x squared, 4x cubed. 4x times negative 3 is negative 12x, goes over here. We're going to subtract. 4's are going to cancel, bring down the negative 6, x squared, and you have a negative 8 plus 12, so that gives you plus 4x, bring down that last term. And we'll do it one more time. Negative 6x squared divided by x squared is just negative 6. Multiply negative 6 times x squared, negative 6x squared. Negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. We're going to subtract. So these will cancel. These will cancel because that's going to make that a minus 18. So all we have left is the remainder of 4x. And I can't divide 4x into that, so that's my remainder. Okay. So in this case, I would write that my quotient is x cubed minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 plus the remainder over what I divided by. Okay. So when you don't have a remainder, then your answer is just the quotient. I didn't have to rewrite that. That is my answer. But when you have a remainder, you need to put them together. Okay? Okay, so as you can see, long division takes a long time. That's where it gets its name, I believe. So most of us don't like to do long division. Now for some problems you have to, okay? You would have to do it for these two. If you got these on your homework, you have to do these by long division. The first one we did, you do not have to do by long division, okay? So let's talk about what's different about that is what you were dividing by. So as long as your divisor is in this form, x plus c or x minus c, you can do a little shortcut method. But if it's not in that form, so I got a number out here, or this was something squared, then you have to do long division, okay? So that's why I went through it with you, because you do need to know how to do it. The shortcut method, which is called synthetic division, can only be done if there's no number in front of the x and then you just have a number, so like this, okay? All right, so it's nice though because most of what you guys do will be this form, and so it's nice to have this shortcut. So we're going to look at synthetic division, okay, and go through the steps. So these steps on the left are how you set this up and how you work the problem. So there's a setup and then you actually do the work, okay? And again, this has to be your form, x minus c. If it's in that form, then you take the value of c. So I'm going to write that that's the solution, okay? C is the solution. So think about, you know, if I asked you what is x equal to, remember we set the roots equal to 0. So it's kind of the same thing here. If x minus 2 is the factor, then if you set x minus 2 equal to 0 and solved it, you would get 2. That's the number that goes in the box, okay? So it's always the opposite sign of what you have in your factor. So we would put the 2 in the box. So again, this is just setting up. We're not doing any work yet. We're setting up kind of the shortcut. Then we're going to write the coefficients of each of the terms of the dividend in next to this number. And make sure you have all of them, including the zeros for placeholders, okay? So we have every number here, x to the third, x squared, x, so everything's accounted for. So I'm going to write 2, 11, negative 7, negative 6. Make sure you use the right signs. And then you're going to skip a line, so we're going to put numbers here, and then you're going to bring down the leading coefficient. So we're just going to bring down that first number. So that is how you start every problem. Okay, you're going to do those steps to set up your problem. Then we're going to do the actual division. Okay, so let me go through this and then we'll go back up here. We're going to multiply the value of c by every number below the line, and then we're going to write the result in the next column. And then we just add the numbers together in the column and then repeat. Okay, so it's a very simple process. You still can make some careless mistakes, so please be careful with that. So we bring down the 2. Anything under the line we multiply by what's in the box. So 2 times 2 is 4, and we're going to put that number right here. Okay, and then you're going to add this column. So 11 plus 4 is 15. Then you're going to multiply 2 times 15 because this number is under the line. So that would be 30, and it goes in the next column. And then we're going to add that, which is 23. Going to multiply 23 times 2, which is 46. And then we're going to add that column, negative 6 plus 46 is 40. The number in the box, or I'm sorry, the number in the last row, that is your remainder, okay? So I want you to look at what we did on example 1. Same problem we were dividing, and notice these are the coefficients, 2, 15, 23. Those are the answer, right? And look at what your remainder was, 40. Okay, so remember these, 2, 15, 23. Notice these numbers right here. Okay, so how do we write this answer? So at the very bottom it says, okay, the number on the right below the line is the remainder. The other number below the line represents the coefficients of the quotient in order by degree of the term. Since the divisor is linear, the degree of the quotient is 1 less than the degree of the dividend. So what does that mean? So because we divided by x minus 2, we've already got one of these x's taken care of. So that means the answer has to be something x squared. Always starts 1 degree less than the problem. So these are the coefficients, and you start with the first coefficient 1 degree less, so it'd be x squared, and then you just go down in descending order just like these are. So this would be plus 15x, and then this would just be the number, And then you have the remainder over what you divided by. Sorry for that noise. And then there is your answer. So exactly the same answer we got. Did not have to do long division. Okay? So let's try that a few more times. Alright, so first off I see I'm going to need some extra numbers. I'm missing x cubed, I'm missing x squared. I'm missing 2 places, so I got to account for that. And then remember, you set that equal to 0 and solve it. So if x minus 3 equals 0, then you're going to put 3 in the box. Okay, so set up, put 3 in the box, list your coefficients. So 1, negative 3, I got to put a 0 for the x cubed, I got to put a 0 for x squared, then 12, and then negative 33. You're going to skip a space, draw a line, and bring down that first term. That is always the way you start every problem. If you forget these placeholders, you will get the wrong answer, so you got to be very careful with that. Alright, then we just start multiplying. Anything below the line gets multiplied to that number, so 1 times 3 is 3, and you're going to add those together, so you get 0. We have 0 times 3, which is 0, add that column. Multiply, 0 times 3 is 0, add that column. Okay, multiply 0 times 3, we get 0, add that column, finally get out of that cycle, we get 12. 12 times 3 is 36, add that column, that is your remainder. Alright, now, remember, these are the coefficients of your answer. So we're going to start 1 degree less than the problem, so this would be 1x to the 4th. I'm going to write it all out. This would be the next coefficient, so 0x cubed. This would be the next coefficient, so 0x squared. This would be the next coefficient, 0x, and then plus 12. And then plus your remainder divided by the divisor. Now you don't obviously need all this, so our final answer would be just x to the 4th plus 12 plus the remainder over the divisor. Okay? I mean, it's okay to write this, but you don't need all those zeros, right? Alright, last one for synthetic division. So what would you put in the box? Okay, this time you have x plus 10. Well, if you set x plus 10 equal to 0 and solve that, you get negative 10. So this time you're going to put negative 10 in the box. Now, notice your coefficients are not in the right order. That matters too. So 3x cubed, so the 3 definitely is first. And then the 25 should come next because we got to put them in descending order. So 25, then the negative 48, and then the 20, right? Because if you wrote this in the right order, it would look like this. So you always have to check and make sure, because they're going to give you problems that are not in the right order or that are missing terms. So you have to make sure you list them correctly and with the right sign. All right. So draw the line, skip a space, and bring down that first number. Okay. All right, multiply. 3 times negative 10, negative 30. Add that. Multiply negative 10 times negative 5. That's 50. Add those numbers. Multiply 2 times negative 10, negative 20. So this time we get a remainder of 0. Okay. So now we're going to start. These are the coefficients. Start 1 degree less, so 3x squared minus 5 is the next coefficient, and then plus 2. No remainder, so that's it. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop here. We're almost at 30-minute mark, and I'll finish the rest of this in our part 2 video. Okay, so you can work on your homework or continue with your notes, and let me know if you have any questions.